Dr. Mrs. Malti Goyal, who is a physicist, and she has done her PhD from IIT Delhi, and she has been a former advisor, Department of Science and Technology, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and she has been emeritus scientist in the Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. She headed the Intersectoral Science and Technology Advisory Committee Division in the Department of Science and Technology and made pioneering contribution to technology development and promotion of industrially oriented research in the area of greenhouse gas control technology and carbon dioxide sequestration. She is a fellow National Environment Science Academy. She has held several important positions and carried out number of national and international assignments in Government of India and served as Vice Chair, Carbon Sequestration Leadership Forum. She is a member of premier professional bodies in the area of her specialization and has been invited by International Science Elsevier publications on energy and others. She has been associated with many academic institutions, and to name a few, these include Jawaharlal Nehru University, Jamia Hamdard University, School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, SV University Tirupati as visiting faculty, Dronacharya College of Engineering and Management as advisor, and with Premier Science Academy INSA as emeritus scientist. She has contributed books in the area of energy sources and global warming, carbon capture and storage, research and development technologies for sustainable energy future, a carbon dioxide sequestration technology for clean energy, Urja and carbon dioxide, and the topic she is likely to handle today is very near to her heart, and she has worked in this area for a number of years, and she is going to be with us for this very important session on sustainable development. Let me share that she has received number of awards including Bharat Jyoti Award 2012 and Certificate of Excellence by India International Friendship Society towards her outstanding contribution to science and society. So on behalf of the Institute and IITR, I extend my sincere gratitude to Madam for accepting our invitation to be with us this afternoon and interact with the participants of the program on this very important aspect, that is sustainable development. So with these words, I now request her to start the interactive session.
Good afternoon to you all, and thanks to the Professor Paramjit Tulsi for giving such vast introduction. I am going to talk about the sustainable development, and before I do that, I think let me quote from Vivekananda, who says, "Whatever mankind dreams, education achieves." So education is the focus. When we were studying, education was the focus, and we were supposed to face the real life situation. Now, after in interim years, the training became the focus, and training programs for scientists, academicians, students, teachers became very important. So trainer gives the ideas and training is carried out. But more recently, the focus has become learning. So it is the recipient who is more important, who comes in the focus. It is the learning which is more important than the training. So you are the focus of the lecture, my lecture today, and I hope you get into this stream of thinking as you go along. I'm going to talk about the sustainable development, Indian philosophy, and the energy future. What energy we are going to be in the future. I'm going to cover what is sustainable development. That is, how do you understand it? There are many diversified models and definitions. How it comes in the Indian, how it relates in the Indian philosophy. What is the role of various stakeholders and how they perceive it, like government, academicians, corporate sector, like that, and the energy future. What is going to be the future of the energy in this context of sustainable development? So with this, I start with the definition, which is well coined by the Brundtland Commission long back. In 1972, this meeting was held, and former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi took it up with the this conference, and which was attended by Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and he then the definition which emerged was meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the needs of the future generation. Now, which means what? The resources, the environment, or the funds? We'll see that. So this was the definition which is the accepted definition of sustainable development. Now, what I'm going to talk about, whether it is sustainable economic development, whether it is sustainable social development, or it is only the environment protection. Because in most documentation, we find that the environment protection is given the highest priority because of the pollution, and pollution is causing the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and causing the global warming. So when we talk of sustainable development, we talk of climate change and global warming. But is it so? Is it not important for the economy? If economy grows rapidly and if doesn't grow, then can there be sustainable development? What we want is the sustainable development for the economy, for the social development, so that there is no disparities between a wide gap reduces between rich and poor, and the environment protection. So if you look at this definition, the local features in economic growth and social development, and the global comes when the environmental protection is talked about. Environmental protection is a global phenomena because atmosphere knows no boundary, and if there is a pollution at X place, it will affect the Y place. So it is a global. So it is sustainable development should not be confused only with the global phenomena. It is both local and global. This is the point you must carry along with you. Now, if you look back, why it comes into picture? Holocene epoch, which is the human, also known as human epoch, which started when the human population started growing. Of course, the life came in 4.5 billion years ago, but the population started human being came much later, and the population of 4 million in 10,000 BC became 1.5 billion in 1900 AD, which means the population was slowly growing over the years of thousands of years. But during the period 1990 to 2000, we saw a phenomenal increase, and the population grew 4 times in 100 years. It became 6 billion in 2000, as you may know. So this rapid increase in population, what it led to? Rapid consumption in energy, rapid growth in urban cities, urban areas, urban population also, more rapid than the actual population growth. Urban population grew much more. The water consumption increased. So all this combined together, energy became the parameter of growth. Energy, if you consume more energy, that means you are having economy. It is interlinked with the economic growth, and those with high economic growth became the developed countries, and those who could not meet the energy needs, basic needs of its people, became the underdeveloped or developing countries. So with this, the new definition was given by the Nobel laureate Paul Crutzen, who said, we are no longer in Holocene era, we are entering the Anthropocene era, because it is we who are influencing the climate of the planet. This is the background of the climate change. Climate change has been there for centuries, and in the ancient time, which is natural phenomena, but it is getting accelerated. So we said the human beings are affecting the climate, and that is causing the climate change and global warming. So globally, the efforts were made at all levels to mitigate and adapt to the climate change, which was happening because of the rapid growth, economic growth, and the sustainable development of planet Earth became the key factor. As you know, there was a vast canvas for sustainable development, which involved from local regions, regional factors, global factors, and in the recent past, in 1969, there was a group, a society formed, Club of Rome, and what they discussed, they met, a elite society met in Seattle of USA, and they discussed the limited availability of earth resources. They feared that if every country grows, the earth resources will be reduced, and if that happens, how will the developed country maintain their status? The pollution was growing, so it was decided that there should be a celebration of the Earth Day. Earth Day, you may be knowing, yesterday was the Earth Day. It is celebrated every year on April 22nd. And yesterday you must have read in the newspaper a lot of news about the addresses given on the Earth Day to protect the planet Earth. And then in 2007, another thing happened, that it was thought that if we close electricity for 1 hour, we can save a lot of electricity. So that another movement started, that fourth Saturday of every year March, 1 hour electricity will be switched off, and that will save a lot of electricity and save the planet. Is it so? I think you should think about it. Can we save the planet by saving electricity only on one day and celebrating the Earth Day only on one day? I think we need to look more deeply into that. So coming to the development and energy, as we say, energy growth is causing the growth of the economy. So fossil fuel energy, which became available. Coal was of course available earlier, but oil was discovered in mid 18th century, mid 19th century as source of energy. Natural gas was only collected during the 20th century because it was there, but it could not be collected and utilized. So all these things, the fossil fuel started growing, and what happened as a result? The mobility grew. The first railway engine, which came in middle of 18th century, gave the mobility to people. People could travel from rail from one place to far distant places. They were no longer dependent on horses. So mobility increased. Second thing which happened, with oil discovery, that those countries who could not have oil, who did not have oil, they could import the oil. So you are no longer dependent on what resources you have. With this, you can, if you have enough money power, you can borrow the resources from other places and make use of it. So some countries who could have the high economic power could borrow the oil, purchase the oil, and their economy grew. So technology development also took faster. As a result, the pollution in the atmosphere increased, and with pollution, the greenhouse gas emission is increased, giving rise to global warming and climate change, as well as depletion of Earth's resources. Because more you take out, now there is a fear that oil is going to finish by 2030 or 2050. So these things, and loss of biodiversity. So many interlinked things are happening with the development. Okay, so how do we control it? Can we take some measures? We can take measures, because again the technology can find the solution. if suppose coal is the highest CO2 emitter, clean coal technology should control a term was coined as clean coal technology to control the emissions. Oil refinery emissions were also controlled. So there were efforts to mitigate CO2 emission with the help of technology. It was thought that natural gas could replace coal, so it will have only 1/4 of emissions or 1/3 of emissions, and then further CO2 reduction can be done using carbon sequestration, and carbon sequestration is removing carbon from the atmosphere, or there can be market mechanism, which also I will tell little bit about later on about the market mechanism to reduce the CO2 emissions. So CO2 management became the key factor, and we thought that it is only the environment which is the sustainable development. It is just to show you how the greenhouse gas emissions past 2000 years till about 1950 there was a marginal increase, and from beyond that you can see on the right hand side there is an exponential increase in the emissions of the greenhouse gas main gases, which is carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide. Three main gases, and there are other gases. Chlorofluorocarbons is another gas which is industrial emission. These three are also occurring naturally. Look at more recent from 1880 observations of the greenhouse gases. Look at carbon dioxide here, nitrogen oxide, nitrous oxide, not nitrogen oxide, nitrous oxide, methane, and CFC. CFC you are seeing on the fourth graph, which is reducing after some time becoming stable. That is because of the Montreal Protocol, which was another global protocol to reduce the production of ozone depleting material in the atmosphere. So that was another phenomena of ozone depletion, but those gases also contributed to global warming, and their contributions over the years has reduced because of stabilization of their production. So look at the global warming scenario. Are you with me? Are you following what I am saying? How can we talk?
हाँ जी, participants from Bahadurgarh, PDM Polytechnic, मैम कुछ सवाल पूछ रहे हैं, kindly answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and NC College of Engineering, NC College. सर आपको समझ आ रहा है सबको?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, very meek. Is it if you find this is too fast, or you find that it is not becoming understandable, please tell.
Actually, slides are not clearly visible.
हाँ जी, रिपीट करो मैम, दोबारा क्या कह रहे हैं आप?
It's not visible properly.
विजिबिलिटी नहीं आ रही है. ओके, हाँ जी, परम जी, विजिबिलिटी देखो भाई, पीपीटी इसकी. ऑलराइट, वो कह रहे नहीं, एनसी कॉलेज.
प्रोजेक्टर का उनको फोकस
मैम अपना जो प्रोजेक्टर है उसका फोकस देखिए एक मिनट. यहाँ से ट्रांसमिशन एंड बहादुरगढ़, आर यू एबल टू सी द PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Clearly.
Okay. Thank you very much. So please kindly check NC College. अपना प्रोजेक्टर चेक कीजिए kindly. Okay, that's all. उतनी.
Okay, so we were talking about the sustainable development, and then because of the global warming is the cause for it. And global warming is happening because certain gases in the atmosphere absorb more of the red emissions, red wavelength emissions. What happens when the sunlight comes on the earth? Partly it gets reflected from the clouds, partly it gets reflected from the buildings, partly it gets reflected from the ground. And when that ground radiation is stopped by certain gases, those gases actually trap the infrared radiation, and that radiation causes the warming of the atmosphere. So these are the four main gases: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. which are naturally present also and giving rise to the temperature which the earth has. You know, the average temperature of the earth is around 14 degree, and which is possible because of the carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere. If it was certain gases were not there, they will definitely, the earth would be like any other planet which is cool, because the radiation will not be absorbed. But these gases are maintaining the atmospheric temperature, and when their concentration is increasing, then we say global warming is happening. So this is carbon dioxide. You may say it is very small quantity of 300 part per million. 300 part per million is a very small quantity. Part per million, you can understand, if there are million molecules, only 300 molecules of carbon dioxide. Why it is so difficult? I mean, why it is causing? You may think, but just look at our body. You know, whenever we are having, when you those of you who may be doing yoga, your teacher will say, without without heart. So they say take out all the carbon dioxide from your system, because that is causing the stomach upset or the diseases. Similarly, the planet Earth perhaps could be, because of the increased carbon dioxide emission, it gets affected, and it is causing the so many complex systems of climate change taking place, and the issue of sustainable development comes in that canvas. So intergovernmental panel on climate change has been created, that is international body, which has brought out a report of assessment, scientific assessments which have been made on the basic physical phenomena of radiation absorption by different gases by different amounts. So they, using those parameters, they have bring out some reports. And as just to tell you that first report came out in 1990. Further revision, all these assessments are based on certain assumptions, because we assume in the atmosphere certain things which should be which are we have to assume atmosphere which is constantly changing. So we assume, make some assumption about the heat transfer process, about the pollution transfer, about the velocity of the atmosphere, I mean the average. So first report came out in 1990, then second report in 1995 gave another assessment which was better than first. Then 2001, third report, and the fourth report came out in 2007. It is the key report of landmark report of IPCC, because it measured the global temperature rise from 1906 to 2005 as 0.74 degree. Average temperature of Earth has risen by 0.74. So it was, if it was 14 point something, it has become 15 point something. So this is a rise. It was also made some predictions up to 2100. It also made predictions for sea level up to 2100. And these were slightly less than previous ones. Now, if you look in this, how the models predict, there are several models, global models, which takes atmosphere, earth, ocean, all in one equations, mathematical equations, make certain assumptions about their lifetime, about the gas lifetime, about the absorption of gases, about the heat transfer mechanisms, about the movement of the earth, everything they take into, and they have predicted the earth increased temperature rise, and you can see it is predicted from 2 to 6 degrees, 2 to 5 degrees in 2100. So there are different model predictions you can see, which is saying that from 2000 onwards to 2100, the temperature of the earth may rise and cause the destruction. Now, what are the initiatives which have been taken internationally to address these phenomena? One thing which comes to my mind is the first conference, Stockholm Conference, which was held in 1972. And that was the beginning of the phenomena, when everyone became concerned, because oil use was increasing, oil depletion was feared, and so there were increasing concern for changing environment. Coal use was increasing, and there were London smog and things like atmosphere was becoming very much of concern. So with the growth of population and development, there was a Stockholm Conference was held, and only Mrs. Indira Gandhi represented from developing countries, and it was highlighted that removal of poverty. Poverty is the greatest pollution, and it is the removal of poverty which can bring the earth to a sustainable form. And then it is the sustainable development which was defined, which I have given you in the beginning, that it is, which said that it is the only way rich and poor countries seen to avoid the crisis, so that they can affect them because the pollution is affecting them equally. And the IPCC report, first report in 1990, was discussed in the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, which was held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. This came to be known as Earth Summit, and this was the official uh, official statement that global warming is taking place and we must take some action, and an agreement on the principle of equitable and sustainable development between the rich and poor. So these were the initiatives which have given rise to this the phenomena which is given more importance to the environment, but it is not. So, which I said, local as well as the global canvas are important. The Earth Summit led to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, as you may be knowing. First global protocol on concerns of climate change. First protocol it was. The world was, countries were divided in Annex 1 and non-Annex 1 countries. There were a few Annex 2 also, but we'll not talk about it. Annex 1 and non-Annex 1 countries were supposed to negotiate about the CO2 mitigation in the atmosphere. Other initiatives also included like World Summit on Social Development, which again talked of eradication of poverty, promoting social integration and access to education for all. And the UN Millennium Declaration was adopted as in 2000, which also concerned these factors. And World Summit on Sustainable Development took place in Johannesburg in 2002, 10 years after the Earth Summit, and it gave importance to technology. It said technology can find the solutions to these concerns, and the development should focus on water, energy, health, agriculture, and biodiversity. So, the term VHAB was coined to give focus to these phenomena, and you can see water, health, agriculture, biodiversity are all local phenomena, and so you have to give importance to them for sustainable development. And the lastly, very recently, 2012, another United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development has taken place, which is known as Rio Plus 20 in 2012, and it has given now two new themes. It has focused. One is green economy, that is green GDP or green economic development. We should not forget that economic development is very important in the context of sustainable development and for poverty eradication. And also it talked about the institutional framework which is required to address these issues. Okay. So with this, I've given you a perspective that how the sustainable development term has been coined and how the international community has looked into the has tried to find out solution through talking with the bringing the countries together, like globalization of the country and global warming. I mean, things all happening together, and this. Now, where does was it earlier also there? Was it there in the how? What is the philosophical side of sustainable development? Has it been only recent phenomena? I think Indian philosophy has always nature has been given a lot of importance. Bounties of nature has been nurtured for the benefit of all. We have always worshipped since the Vedic times trees, animals, even animals, rivers, land. That worshipping was to give them a lot of importance and protecting them. and that thing has becoming now losing because of the waste generation. I mean, and the development, cutting of trees because of development. So the loss of biodiversity is taking place. Rivers are getting polluted. So these were the long traditions in India to bring harmony with nature. That is sustainable development. Is harmony with nature. And India can be said to be most advanced countries of the world in terms of sustainability, say 5,000 years, 4,000 years ago. So it was there. It was not only in Indian philosophy. You see, the five basic elements: earth, fire, the air, space, all these were given a lot of importance for sustainability. And still again we are coming back to the same phenomena. Even the Buddhist philosophy, which talked of optimal consumption, middle path, also simplicity and non-violence were their main teachings towards trees and animals. So Buddhist philosophy also talked of sustainable development. Islamic philosophy, because India was ruled by Islamic Mughals during the medieval period, and they also considered that human role in environmental and ecological activities. It has been even written in the Quran. So there were also these features were there of sustainability, which we have forgotten. The Gandhian philosophy also talked of the holistic approach in society in which all have equal social, economic, and political rights as well as the opportunity. This was again reminded by the Mahatma Gandhi that sustainability. He also said that there is enough for the everyone on earth, but not for the greed. This was his famous quote. So, with so this has been there from in the country, and then if we say what is regional, if we look into Asian region, South Asian region particularly, then we can say since Buddhism is prevailing and Hinduism is there, so actually it should be there should be a phenomena like need for regional sustainable development where India can take a lead. You see, we should consider more focus on the regional. So, develop a model for sustainability which is more philosophical and lays stress on individuals in tune with the religious approach which has been there already. And in the context of diversified development models which are taking place, it is also the community service. Communities should take the role. And here is the panchayat which is there in the Indian scenario comes into play, that panchayat can play a great role in sustainability, and local sustainability development should be focused on. Coming to the Constitution of India, the 11th schedule lists soil conservation, water management, watershed development, social and farm forestry, drinking water, fuel and fodder, non-conventional energy sources as the areas of growth. You must be reading the papers that water is becoming so scarce, water level is going down not only in cities but also in the mountains. Mountains are drying. So all this can be handled by water management. Water management is losing ground. The rainfall is there, but we talk of rainwater harvesting, but the water management is not being done scientifically to meet the requirements. 12th schedule of Constitution also lists wildlife, protection of environment, ecology, sanitation. It also talks of solid waste management, maintenance of parks and gardens for the sustainability. So these are some of the highlights for if you want to look into the Constitution. Now, what is the role of various stakeholders in this? As a community, as an individual, as a organization, what can you do? That is important. So how they perceive it. We'll go one by one. Of course, government has the regulations, government policy and programs which I'll describe. Now look at the corporate sector. Corporate sector was immune to sustainable development for very long, but not so now. Multinationals, Navratnas, all are taking actions to reduce their CO2 footprints. Also, they are having this corporate social responsibility is a special part of it, which takes into account the importance of sustainable development. So that is important. Banks are giving different rates for the green projects. Loan banks are also judging the projects from their sustainability point of view and have different rates, lower rates of loans. Academics, I think academics, there are few discussions on sustainable development, and it is not been discussed in terms of local needs, local models. Not enough is there in the literature, but there is a lot of awareness which is there. So looking at the government regulations, I think I can skip that. Of course, they are all environmental management regulations which have come from 1969 onwards, when the environment management was mentioned in the 5-year plans, and then there have been a lot of Air Pollution Prevention Act, Water Pollution Prevention Act, and Environmental Protection in 86. Then there were factories. All hazardous factories have been removed from the urban areas one by one. And there are vehicular norms, 1, 2, Bharat stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Whole lot of subjects are there which can go on and go on, but we cannot cover all. The National Environmental Policy 2006 categorically mentioned sustainable development, but it only talked about the ecological constraints. It also talked of imperatives of social justice, of course, but economy is now getting integrated into sustainable development. And then there was an increasing investment in adaptation to climate change. From then onwards, an expenditure has been increasing gradually in the adaptation. Another important policy measure is National Action Plan on Climate Change. I hope you have heard of it. Is it so? Any response about the National Action Plan on Climate Change? Are you with me?
And जी participants,
Are you aware of a National Action Plan on Climate Change?
कुछ idea है National Mission on Climate Change and the Action Plan? Any participant?
No, ma'am.
Okay. NC College? No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, as we have been part of the, is it okay? Okay. As we are part of the international negotiations for climate change mitigation, we have talked about the climate change which is taking place because of the development, and we are talking about sustainable development. So because of India has announced National Action Plan on Climate Change in 2008. And this action plan has 8 mission areas, which is focusing on energy, solar energy use. The growth of solar energy is expected to not create pollution in the atmosphere. Energy efficiency improvement, buildings to be sustainable or green buildings, water resource management, Himalayan glacier and ecosystem safeguarding, ecosystem services, enhancement of services, making agriculture to respond to climate change, and strategic knowledge mission. So these are the 8 areas where a lot of work is going on. My previous department where I worked, Department of Science and Technology, has 2 mission areas. One is about the Himalayan glaciers and ecosystem, and another is the strategic knowledge mission. So if you are interested in approaching these, in the work in these areas, you can approach departments. Similarly, there are other departments or ministries of the Government of India which are funding projects on solar energy and green buildings, and similar water resource ministry. So there is a lot of scope for the teachers to do research in these areas by going to the various ministries. Since we have been talking about the energy system, I thought I will give you a very broad overview of the energy, how we produce. If you can look in this graph, can you see the graph? Is it visible? The graph is visible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On the right hand side graph, we are showing the amount of electricity that is produced from using different sources. Coal is more than 50%, oil and natural gas, hydroelectricity. We produce about 30 to 40,000 megawatt electricity from hydro. We produce almost more than 120 megawatt from coal. And then renewables, nuclear energy. We have a good big program on nuclear energy. 20 nuclear power plants are running at present. Okay. Also, just have a look at the per capita CO2 emission from the world and India. India is somewhere, you can see on the top, there are countries in the bottom which are producing a lot of CO2 emissions per person. So when we talk of equitable distribution, India is much lower producer, almost 1/16th or 17th of US citizen, Indian citizen, is much lower. But on the whole, India is now, I think, third largest producer of CO2 emission. So you have to look on the whole because of the population, you have to look on the individual basis and see that what we can do on the CO2 emissions. So this part I just covered to give you a perspective from the sustainable development from the energy. So on energy, I will talk a little more on this part. This is how energy can be contribute towards sustainable development. All of you know that energy is very important. Electricity is very important. We need to have. We don't have electricity, we cannot communicate like this. So electricity is important, and electricity is also causing pollution because coal is major source of energy, and so we have to tackle it by using renewable energy sources. So what are the options? Options is, first is that we should have high energy efficiency generation from coal. If the efficiency increases, the emissions will reduce. We should increase the renewable energy sources, contribution of various sources of energy. The rest of my talk, I am going to talk about the energy sources. Energy sources, you are now a bit familiar now? Are you familiar? Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
We produce, we use thermal power plants to produce energy, and then we use, now we are producing solar, we are producing nuclear energy, we are producing hydroelectric energy substantially from the river, from the dam construction. Then we are talking of energy efficiency of generation, energy efficiency in use, energy conservation. Indian philosophy always stressed on conservation of resources, conservation of energy, conservation of and recycling of resources that is getting forgotten. Then promotion of clean coal technology and mitigation of emissions by carbon management. So energy can be a major contributor towards the sustainable development. We will discuss one by one. Solar energy. Solar energy, we have a national solar mission. As I said, this is one of the area of the national action plan. So we have targeted to produce 20,000 megawatt of solar energy by 2022. And it is a program in 3 phases. First phase is already over. Now we are in the second phase, and that will be also coinciding with the 12th plan, and then third phase. So we target to get 1000 megawatt in the first phase. We targeted to get 6,000 megawatt in the second phase, and 20,000 to achieve full target by 2022 in the third phase. So different policy. You can see the growth of solar PV increasing on the bottom, and the cost coming down. Cost is reducing. Solar energy has not been very popular because the cost is very high. So the cost is coming down, and we hope to get these targets met. But for that, everyone has to make an effort. Only the government effort may not succeed. Everybody has to make use of solar energy in their houses, in their buildings to the maximum. Then only we can meet the targets. Another form is from the wind energy. Lot of you must have seen the windmills have come in different parts of the country now, and we are gradually increasing the wind contribution, and we are also gradually increasing the capacity for making bigger wind machines. So these are the important things. Hydropower is also important. Worldwide 900 gigawatts, 800 gigawatts of hydropower is generated, and India's contribution is only 40 right now, 38 to 40 gigawatts. So very low contribution of India in hydropower generation, and there is a lot of opposition everywhere when their hydropower plant comes, and still but others have done it, so we should be able to do it. This is important for sustainable development. It is a main solution for sustainable development. Similarly, we can harness the ocean energy also, and this is to show how the quantitatively we can reduce the emissions by using these sources. Then biofuels. Everyone is very much familiar with the biofuels energy. Biofuel energy, of course, there are big potential to produce electricity, but there are competing demands for land for agriculture. Because if we grow energy crops, the agricultural land will be reducing. So there are first generation, second generation, third generation biofuels sources are being developed to find the solution for the pollution-free energy from the biofuels. And then finally the nuclear fission, that is atomic reactor, which already we are doing from 1948 onwards. India has a big program. And the geothermal energy. Geothermal energy we are not utilizing as yet. Worldwide it is being used. It is the energy below the earth, and it can be taken out by drilling inside the earth, either through water, or it can be utilized for electricity production, for heating the building, cooling the building, but still we are not using. So there the technology is very important. So all of you who are future teachers, you are already teachers, so one should look into these aspects for the students, that how can we solve these problems and increase their contribution. So India, as I said, is quite ahead in renewable energy. It also produces grid connected wind power, which is more than 9 gigawatts. Hydropower is grid connected, and then 900 megawatt has been added by the mission. You will not believe that in 2010, when the mission was launched, only 12 gigawatt was connected to the grid of solar power, and today we have projects of 900 megawatt of grid connected solar power. So mission has done these wonders, and mission areas are to give wide popularity throughout the country to make use of the solar energy. Target is to increase the green energy share up to 28%, from 28%, that is including hydro and nuclear, everything, to 40% in 2022. So this is the target, and the barriers are there. Barriers are there for the renewable energy because renewable energy sources have low efficiency. As I said, it cannot produce as much as coal thermal power plant. So you need huge areas in kilometers. You need vast areas. And if you use vast areas, then it should not conflict with your agriculture, with your building. So there are these local problems has to be solved for the sustainable development. If we go and produce solar energy in the, say, in the deserts, then you have to transmit to the place where you want to use. The cost of transmission is very high. So you have to find local solutions for the sustainable development. I think this I can skip. So what is the future? Energy. We have coal. Coal has problems. Natural gas is not available. So we cannot use it much. Then renewable energy is freely available to everybody, but it is low efficiency. So it requires huge area in spite of beside the cost. Cost is high. So cost may come down with technology and the efficiency may also improve. So there are concepts like every roof has a solar coatings, or every building, every car has a solar roof. I mean, these are the concepts which are there. Then what are the future energy? After all, we still have, say, about 300 million population which does not have electricity. So what is the solution? So then from the sustainability point of view, we look for the clean sources of energy. And clean sources are which do not produce CO2 emissions, like renewable energy. So underground coal gasification. Now there are mines from where we cannot mine the coal easily. So if we somehow go inside, say, 1 kilometer and somehow ignite coal there by some means, then coal get gasified. Coal ignite in such a manner that it gets gasified and then take out the gas. So we presume that when this gas is taken out, all CO2 will remain inside. And this will be a cleaner gas for fuel for energy. Nuclear fusion. Nuclear fission we break a bigger atom into two parts, and those they create a chain reaction, and chain reaction produces the heat, and that heat is utilized for electricity generation. If we can fuse two atoms into one, like sun has the fusion energy. Hydrogen atoms get fused into helium. So this way, if we can create such condition on the earth, which is similar to sun, and we can fuse the lighter atoms to create nuclear fusion, there will be no radiation leakage. In the case of nuclear fission, there is a lot of radiation, which is a pollution in the atmosphere in the form of liquid radiation as such, and also the spent fuel. Spent fuel is also a radiation source. So we have to find ways to put them underground, deep inside the earth. So fusion is radiation free. So this is a new source of energy, nuclear fusion. More work is required to be done. Internationally, there is work going on. If fusion energy we succeed, perhaps we can have small fusion reactors, and which is pollution free, and there will be no shortage of electricity in future. Then coal bed methane, it's another term. Coal we use, mine, take it out, burn it, combust it, and produce steam in the boilers, which produces electricity. So if we can take out methane, when the coal forms, a lot of methane gas is trapped in the process of coalification. And then we have to judge the coal lifetime, how much methane content is there. If it is adequate content, can we take it out? It is not so easy to take it out, because you must have seen in some of the mining areas like Jharia, lot of coal fires are there. And that because of the mine when the coal is taken out, the methane gas emits, it catches fire, and then it burns. So there are huge areas where this methane is getting burned. So if we can control it, if we can take it out by injecting water, controlling some way, and then say methane is taken out in a controlled way, it can be used as a fuel. And this is being done in many countries. Shale gas. Shale gas is another natural gas trapped inside the rocks. USA has changed the scenario by producing shale gas and not importing oil. You will be surprised, India is importing about 80% of its oil from abroad. Coal we are producing substantial quantity, but oil is very less quantity we are producing. 80% is being imported. So if America produced the shale gas, which is natural gas inside the rocks, actually this is again a highly high-tech process of fracturing the rock to the depth and then taking out the shale gas. But they have mastered this technology and they have reduced their oil import. So this is another clean source of energy which can be formed. And gas hydrates, they are in the ice-like structure inside the ocean. So these can be also used as a source of natural gas because these are found at certain pockets inside the ocean, and a lot of research is going on to explore them, extract them. And these ice-like, they are a vast storehouse of energy. So these are the possible future energy sources where we should look for, and innovation is required for harnessing them because they are, or technology is required, innovation is required. Even to make renewable energy more user friendly, we require innovation. And these new sources of energy is still developing. They can be the future source in say 2030. So we should look for them right now. So with this I come to the definition of sustainable development now. We talked it is to meet the need of the future generation. When they feared that resources are finishing, then how the future source, you must have seen the ad in the TV also, that where will be the oil. So it said it is a process of change in which exploitation of resources, the direction of investment, the orientation of technology development and institutional change all are in harmony and enhance both the current and future potentials to meet the human need and aspiration. So I think we should take this as a comprehensive definition of sustainable development, which covers all the aspects of investment, technology development and institutional change. So I come to the conclusion, and I before I give my thanks to your institution of National Teachers Training and Research Institute for giving me this privilege, I will say that sustainable development is a vast canvas. Both local and global priorities exist. We have to choose our own model. Each country has to develop its own model. And that's where your role comes in. In ancient times, India was most advanced in terms of sustainability. India's energy system is predominantly coal-based as of now. And can we stop using coal and not produce electricity? It is not possible. Then we have to address the sustainable development. India is moving ahead towards harnessing renewable energy sources through the National Solar Mission. India has to take a lead in South Asia also in building a community-based approach, maybe at panchayat level, to attain sustainable development. Role of innovation and technology development need to be recognized in development of new sources of clean energy, which I gave you some glimpses. Shale gas, gas hydrates, coal bed methane. Okay, so this is where we can look into. Each is a subject of description, a vast description, and if you look into these, you can look for the future dimensions. Should we talk about Should we talk about clean development mechanisms? Is it? Or is there enough interest?
Let's do the interaction and then we can.
Yeah, I think we can stop it here and have some interaction.
So over to PDM Polytechnic. So here, if you have any question for the expert, any issue you would like her to deliberate upon, or anything you would like to contribute to, so you are welcome.
Yes.
Any efforts or actions being taken by the institute to contribute to sustainable development in any way, or as an individual, you are taking certain steps to keep the environment clean, green, please, PDM and NC College, or any question for the expert at this juncture?
Hello, ma'am.
Angie, please go ahead.
Actually, we were discussing global warming. She coined a term IPCC assessment. I want to know about that. What
मैम एक बार थोड़ा सा रिपीट कीजिए, आपकी आवाज थोड़ा सा लाउडर प्लीज.
while discussing global warming,
या
IPCC assessment, I want to know about this.
ग्लोबल वार्मिंग, आप ग्लोबल वार्मिंग के बारे में जानना चाह रहे हैं?
No, I want to know about IPCC assessment.
IPCC assessment?
IPCC
Assessment. Okay, the question ma'am is going to reply to your question.
IPCC, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, was formed as a result of concern for the environment by World Meteorological Organization and United Nations Environment Program. It came into being in 1988 as a group of scientists from some countries where experts were taken, and they prepared a report of assessment of the changes which are possible in the atmosphere because of the increasing pollution, increasing population, and with the economic development. So they actually made some amount of atmospheric modeling analysis, which is called Global Circulation Model, GCM. Global circulation models are developed to find out if there is a carbon dioxide X amount, and then if it is X, 2X, say after 50 years or 100 years, then what will be the effect on the temperature? So these global circulation models are formulated by taking certain mathematical equations and making certain physical assumptions about the physical state of the atmosphere. So when you combine that and then you compute the impact of the pollutants, then CO2 is there, double CO2, how much will be the impact? So these kind of studies were carried out using the existing data available for the meteorology. How much is the temperature, how much is the wind at a place, because they will affect the dispersion of pollutants. So then they made an assessment, scientific assessment on the various aspects of the earth system. That is the agriculture, not only on temperature, but all the aspects which are covered under an Agenda 21 was given out. Agenda 21 was towards the sustainable development of the earth, a program of action for the 21st century. Is that okay?
Hanji ma'am, any further question would you like to ask?
Yes, ma'am. We have a question, ma'am.
Please go ahead. PDM.
Ma'am, India has very vast source of solar energy, but its use is very less. Why, ma'am, it is?
Solar, sun, we have huge amount of sun, and you will be surprised to know that Germany, who is not only smaller, much smaller than India in size, and also much less sun, is producing almost 30 times the solar energy that we are producing. So it is the right question, you have asked the right question, that solar energy is there. But if we are trying to convert it into electricity, the density of solar energy is much less compared to solid fuels, that is coal or nuclear. For example, coal you need huge amount, but nuclear you need very less amount. So each source of energy has got certain amount of density. If we use oil, it is more efficient than coal. Nuclear is very efficient, whereas solar energy is very less efficient. So it's used. Then it is an intermittent source of energy. It is not there 24 hours. Whereas coal, you have 24 hours. You can generate coal and use it. So if you put up a solar plant, then you have to find solution to store the solar energy in some way. The cost is more. The cost is coming down, but still it is higher, 6 to 8 times higher than the cost of coal-based energy. So these are some of the reasons that we are not able to generate as much as we can from the solar energy which is available to us. So there is a lot of action required on our part to promote it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So, Hanji, NC College, further question or PDM?
Ma'am, I want to ask a question.
Hanji, please go ahead.
Ma'am, what are the sources of green electricity?
What are the sources of re-electricity?
Green electricity.
Green electricity.
Green electricity.
Green electricity.
Yeah, green is another term used for the pollution-free electricity, and green should not be taken as a green color, like green buildings should not be taken as the building painted with green color. So green buildings are those which are in harmony with the nature surroundings, with the surroundings of the building, which consume least resources, like can use more of the renewable sources of energy, make electricity from the waste. So these green electricity is something which you can produce from the renewable energy sources. You can use, these are the terms which are coined from time to time to popularize the importance, like Earth Day, then Earth Hour, like this. So they actually have no basis, but it is assumed that since plants are green, so they are in harmony with the nature. The green electricity would be in harmony with the nature and not spoiling the nature. There is something synonymous like that. I mean, that can be one definition.
Yes. Any other issue you would like to raise?
Hello?
Hanji?
Ma'am, I have one question.
हाँ बोलिए please.
Ma'am, how technology development affects conservation of energy?
How technology development affects the conservation of energy?
Hello?
Hanji, is it the question how technological development affects conservation of energy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You see, each process is for example, we take coal. If we are using a technology for coal, which is simply combusting coal, then it has certain amount of efficiency. Now, now India is doing these supercritical power plants, thermal power plants. You must have heard India is building supercritical thermal power plants. So in those plants, the technology has to be developed so that the combustion, koila to burn karega, even if you put koila, it will burn, then efficiency will be low. If you do it in a pulverized coal manner, it has 30% of 30 to 35% efficiency. But if you can create supercritical conditions in the boiler, which is high pressure and high temperature, then normal, those are the supercritical conditions, then the efficiency can go up to 45%. So this supercritical combustion techniques is a technology. You need to have the boiler of that kind. So process, actually, you determine the energy from the process and the product. So either you make a product which consumes less energy, or you change the process, and both require the technology development. simply
Hanji. So, any other issue?
Question.
Hanji, बोलिए please.
I have a question. Why this solar energy is not so popular? Electrical energy के charges हैं वो काफी high cost में still solar energy not so popular. Why we don't use solar energy at our home in the working places? What is the reason why it is not so popular?
Yeah, पहले ही कि why solar energy is not being used by many of the people and why it is not so popular and the reasons for that. And she has already given you the efficiency is low, it is an intermittent source of energy. And third thing which is said was it's not cost effective. So at present the cost is very high of producing electricity from solar energy.
silicon
So-
solar cells, you must have heard silicon
Yeah.
solar cells, they have 10% efficiency. Now there is a lot of effort going on to increase it up to 50%. A thermal power plant has an efficiency of 35%. So that is the reason we have to make sacrifice. Now if we can develop a dye cell or some kind of simple material which can produce 50% efficiency from solar light, then of course it will become very popular. So there has again a problem of technology and research.
So, participants, any other question or any other issue? No more question from PDM
Hello?
or NC? Yeah, please go ahead, NC College of Engineering.
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ जी बोलिए.
Ma'am, actually, one side we know that due to global warming, glaciers are melting and sea level rises. But on the other hand, we heard that in coming years, we are going to face a huge water crisis. Is it not contradictory?
Okay, I think your question ma'am is going to answer now.
I'm sure you must have heard of hydrological cycle. It is the hydrological cycle which actually maintains the balance of water on the earth. And it is if the glaciers are melting, there will be less water coming to the oceans. On the contrary, the ocean sea level rise will inundates the coastal areas, and there are cities which will get wiped out, and groundwater levels are going down. If it is hydrological cycle, if you see, it is not so. Otherwise, the ground level should not be having shortage of water also. But their groundwater is getting dried. So it is the surface water management which is more important than the glaciers melt, then they again may form because of the if we can manage the hydrological cycle, then the problems will be not there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I think then we can request ma'am to continue with the presentation or any other question is there. That's it.
No more questions, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. NC College. NC College of Engineering.
Thank you, ma'am. No more questions.
Okay, no more questions. Okay. Ma'am, now we'll leave it to you. जैसे आप decide करें आगे चलना है.
Let me tell you, since we have talked about the international negotiations between Annex 1 and Annex 2, non-Annex 1 countries. Annex 1 countries are those developed countries and non-Annex 1 are the developing countries. So we have also talked about how technology can solve the problem of sustainable development. But not only technology, the market is another thing which can solve the problem. Now we are looking at this from the two sides, technology side, market side. So there are a lot of market mechanisms being suggested in the negotiations to curtail the CO2 emissions. So I'll just talk about the market mechanisms, which is also known as clean development mechanism. There were different mechanisms have been put forward to stabilize the concentrations. Stabilizing concentration with the minimum cost. One is reduction of concentration, another is stabilization. So the clean development mechanism, which you must have heard many times, is actually a mechanism to stabilize the concentration of greenhouse gases. And how these markets are created is a very intricate phenomena that, see, the next one countries are the big producer of goods. We all agree that. And non-Annex 1 countries are still facing the problem of energy shortages, poverty. So when the negotiation between Annex 1 and non-Annex 1 started, they in one of the meetings, Kyoto Protocol was put forward. Kyoto Protocol, you must have heard that there was a protocol between two parties how to reduce CO2 emissions. That was came for the as a mechanism, because non-Annex 1 countries were saying that since they need to grow, they cannot reduce their emissions. Their per capita emission should be taken as a benchmark. So equity principle should be applied. All citizens of the world should be allowed to grow, so that on per capita basis they should not be asked to reduce their emissions. And this is a fact. We cannot reduce our emissions because we have to grow. We have to produce more electricity, whatever source, but we have to produce. We need funds, whatever it is. So the Kyoto Protocol was suggested, so that like you said, the technology plays a role in energy efficiency. All technology is not available in the knowledge domain. It is not with everyone. So they will transfer the energy efficient technology from Annex 1 to non-Annex 1. This was the thinking, that they should freely give the technology to Annex 1 countries, and in return what they will have? Carbon credits. Carbon credits means it will be presumed that they have reduced their emission by that amount. Is it understandable? My market mechanism between the technology markets. See, you get a technology which is energy efficient, and by using that technology you reduce some CO2 emissions in your ongoing activity or future activity. That amount of reduction goes as a credit to advanced countries, developed countries. So they get a credit. So actually the emissions are not reduced, but they will get the credit, and they can meet the Kyoto Protocol targets. Kyoto Protocol gave a target to each country based on their emission levels. As I've shown you, CO2 emission level very high for some countries and quite low for some countries per capita. So those with high emission levels were asked to reduce. And so to meet their targets, this mechanism was initiated, carbon clean development mechanism, so that overall cost of reducing emission is also reduced. You see, you don't have to develop a technology, and development cost a lot. You get free technology, and those countries get the credits, and so it is a mutual arrangement. So this mechanism was put forward by the UN system. So Annex 1 countries count their emission obtained from the project activities in developing countries against their agreed targets, and they will get the credit that they have reduced, which they have not. So that's why some people talk of changing living styles. And once these reduction can be used to meet their targets, these targets were defined in such a manner, and non-Annex 1 countries will get the benefit of sustainable development because they are using better technology. Understand? They will get the benefit of using better technology, so they are moving towards sustainable development, and this is what we wanted. So this is the mechanism. So again, how it works is a very complex phenomena. There is a CDM executive board which which sits there to review each project, and there should be an agreement between the two countries, and then it should be verified. You see, to suppose you say you have done it, but actually you have not done it, so there has to be verification by the team to see that really there is a reduction, because those reduction will be sold in the market, global market. So these kinds of complexities were there, and there were so many steps in, like first you make a proposal which is screened in your own country, then you further develop this project to an extent, then the national authority will approve it, that yes, it is approved. Whenever you give a proposal to anybody, they have to approve your project. Then it goes for validation and registration to the UN body, who will validate that this is correct estimate. Implementation is then carried out. When the implementation takes place, then there is a verification of the actual emission, and the certificate is issued, and these certificates are then traded in the international market by the developed countries. What type of projects? Renewable energy. Lot of wind projects actually grew. We have seen that the wind project actually grew because of CDM, because a lot of new projects came up. Small hydro also came up. Biomass and solar actually was not growing because of this, but wind and hydro. Then using new kind of fuel which is less polluting, like natural gas. Improving energy efficiencies, steel industry, which produces steel with a lot of energy consumption. If we can improve their process to improve the efficiency, the new technology required, waste management, and of course agriculture and forestation. But let me tell you, in the case of agriculture, there were hardly few projects, because there complexity of agriculture projects of land use, certifying of land, the guidelines, verification was very complicated, and very few projects came up. So in the project formulation, there were also technicalities. You see, technicalities means you have to first establish that this is my baseline. This is the emission from where I am going to reduce. You see, unless, how can you say you have reduced if you have not given a baseline? And that baseline should be acceptable worldwide. For any, suppose you are producing using wind energy, and suppose you are using coal, so there should be some baseline which is acceptable to everybody, that the coal will produce so much of CO2 emissions. Now, if it is acceptable, and if you suppose use wind energy, then you can say by 1 megawatt of wind energy I have reduced emission by this amount. So baseline is very important. Then only you can find out the reduction. So there were a lot of discussion about the baseline. Then leakage. Leakage, for example, the agriculture projects. There can be a leakage in the because the boundaries can change, and if boundaries change, there can be emission. Criteria will change. So there can be again then permanence of the targets. Project accreditation and registration is technical step. Measurement, monitoring, and verification, very technical. So all these actually combine a very complicated process of clean development mechanism, which requires a lot of understanding. Only thing which I want to say here is that because of agriculture and forestation projects were less in CDM mechanism, because CDM was very complicated to establish baseline, to establish the dynamic process of plant growth, to establish the reductions. So in COP 13, that is 13 meeting of the negotiation, another mechanism, reducing emission from forestation, was put up. And this was a different mechanism, and this was suggested to for forestation projects only, for forestation and deforestation and reforestation. So this is a new mechanism which is still being discussed as a CDM mechanism for crediting CERs. Means if you generate the forest, you can credit. And it was considered important for tropical countries. All the tropical countries have big forest. They have a larger area. So India has 23% forest and tree cover, and 1/6 of population depends on their livelihood on agriculture. So it is important. And if you can identify, you can earn the credit and you can earn the money out of it. In CDM, the industry was earning because the industry was putting the plant was earning. You see, whosoever puts a wind energy plant will make an earning. It is in the agriculture project, if you are the owner, landowner, you can make money. So it is called RED project, REDD. So there it is if it is accepted in CDM, then agriculture projects will get more benefited because it is the individual who will get the benefit, who is the landowner, who will put the forest, who will take action to not to cut forest, will get the benefit. So that way it is for individual oriented, whereas the CDM was industry oriented. Industry made the money out of it. So RED can also address the deforestation while providing sustainable livelihood to women, because women are the landowners in most parts of the country, like especially in South and Kerala, also in the northern parts. So they are the landowners, so they can get benefits, and so it can have empower them. Women empowerment is another. So this was few things which I actually made a presentation in the Science Congress. So it is a part of that. So I thought I can share with you that the clean development mechanism is a market mechanism for which you have to, both parties have to agree, because when you go to buy something, you agree that this good is so much of per kilo. So both parties have to agree, and here the agreement is very difficult to come in because a lot of things are involved, lot of technology is involved, lot of countries are involved, lot of interest, political interests are also involved. So this is a very complicated mechanism. But if the another second, now Kyoto Protocol first phase is over in 2012, and the new phase is now being thought what will be the shape of it. So that's why people are not talking of CDM right now, but people are talking of RED mechanisms like RED, where the individual can benefit and industry goes in the other direction.
So, well, friends, I think ma'am has made very lucid, comprehensive, and very exhaustive presentation on sustainable development, starting with the very concept of sustainable development and what initiatives have been taken at the global level and at the country level, and then what are she has focused on primarily the energy, and I'm very sure that you must have been enlightened on the issues to which I think we should all be concerned about those issues. And if you have raised many good questions, and at this juncture, if you have any further questions, you are welcome.
Yeah, on CDM also if you want.
CDM के बारे में कुछ और जानना चाहते हैं या any other on sustainable development? या जिन पॉइंट्स को मैम ने टच किया उनके बारे में कोई एडिशनल चीज आप जानना चाह रहे हैं? सो द हाउस इज ओपन फॉर डिस्कशन. जी, एनसी कॉलेज ऑफ इंजीनियरिंग, आप कुछ पूछना चाह रहे हैं? नो मोर क्वेश्चन?
No, ma'am.
Okay, no question from the PDM also, no question from NC College. So friends, if there are no more questions, so I take this opportunity, and on behalf of all of you and on my personal behalf, on behalf of the Institute, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Malti Goel, who could spare some of her valuable time and be with us this afternoon to deal with this very important issue of sustainable development. And she has very rightly emphasized on that the population is increasing, the nature has given us abundance of resources, a balance needs to be maintained, harmony needs to be created, and for that matter, whether we talk in terms of water, we talk in terms of energy or other resources, what is needed is lot of innovation is required, and that innovation for having the alternate resources or alternate sources of energy, that may be for cost reduction, so making the new technology more cost competitive. And then we need to look in for the resources which are, or the alternate renewable energy sources which are more efficient, and we are able to maintain our environment clean and green. And I think she has also very rightly said that the Indian culture has been training people in giving due respect to the plants, to animals, to water, to energy, to wind, and so on. And if we continue with our traditions and we follow the principles which have been taught to us from our religion also, even then we can contribute a little bit to the sustainable development by protecting the environment. Now, I think I thank her for such a lucid presentation on sustainable development and for her interactive session where she could deal with the questions raised by the participants of the program. I thank all the participants who generated interaction by raising the question, and thank you. And I thank her once again, and thank you one and all. See you tomorrow at 9:30 for the third day proceedings. Is it okay now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, see you tomorrow. I think a big round of applause at this juncture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.